Here we are, That GD Show. Hey, Genevieve.
Hi, Dave. How are you doing?
Good. We both here again. How about that? We're both here
I
at the same
know.
time. Good to
I
be here.
know.
Good to be here again, everyone. We really love coming to you every Monday night. And big announcement tonight. We are now making the show available as a podcast.
Yes.
We're getting it all set up. In fact, I think about 20 episodes have been uploaded to your favorite podcast platform, Stitcher, Apple, whatever. What do you listen to podcasts on, Genevieve?
I listen on Spotify.
Yeah, Spotify.
Yep.
Yep. My good friend Alan Thomas is helping us with that. I see you in the chat, Alan. Thank you so much. Oddly enough, Genevieve, there are people who want to listen to this show so they don't have to look at us. I don't understand. But I mean, why would they not want to look at us?
Yeah, I mean, if I could, I would actually just replace every character on every TV show that I watch with your face, just so I could
With
see it
yours
more
too.
often.
Yeah, mine's same.
Mm.
But no, we're really happy to have that going, and we're going to be, it's going forward. We're going to be having all the shows automatically uploaded to podcast format, so you'll be able to listen while you're driving, while you're running, while you're riding your bike to work. I had someone message me today, say, I ride my bike. Can I get your show in podcast format? Well, funny you should ask, because the people have spoken and we give them what they want. But thanks for tuning in tonight, folks. As usual, we'd like you to, if you haven't already, subscribe to the show, like the show. If you do like, even if you don't like it, hit the like button. But that helps us. It helps YouTube find new viewers, which is what we're always wanting to do. We're trying to spread the message, the good news of the ungospel. Hey, there's Greg Markowski. Hey, Greg. As a proud member of AEA, I want to wish my union brothers and sisters a happy Labor Day. Yes, indeed. Thank you for your super chat, Greg. You're almost always the first one here, and we appreciate your support. It means a lot to us. Speaking of that, the super chats really do help us. It helps us with the cost of the show, the other costs behind the scenes with the Dying Out Loud stuff we do, the work we do, more than just this show, traveling and other things that we're doing. I'm actually going to be starting to write. I'm going to be a regular contributor on Only Sky. So if you're not familiar with that platform, we'd invite you to go check that out. So I'm in touch with the people there to figure out how often and what kind of stuff. But yeah, that's what I need to do, is add one more thing to my schedule. This is a call-in show. What should folks do in that regard, Genevieve?
If you want to talk to us, which I don't know why you wouldn't, you should call the number on the screen. It's 217-375-9933. Our lines are open, and so are our ears.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. We love the calls. If you guys just want to chat with the guest, if the guest is that we have, you're going to want to chat with our guest tonight. She has an amazing story. I'm really excited to have her on tonight. But you might want to call her and just talk about that. Anything you want to ask me and Genevieve, anything that's on your mind, we just love to have callers on the show. It really adds a lot to it. Also, if you watch the show afterwards, speaking of also back to support, there's a super thanks option now. If you're watching tomorrow, next week, whatever, in the comments you can send a super thanks. And that's another way that you can support us. There's Will Judy, my friend from Houston. $20 support. Big hugs from Texas. Carry on, you badasses. Thank you, brother. Love you, man. The trivia contest. I'm really disappointed in all of you, because as you know, we do a trivia question from my book, Childish Things, my memoir. If you haven't watched the show before, or if you're just tuning in, and so we pull a trivia question. I pull a trivia question from the book, and the first one in the chat to get the correct answer wins a GD Show coffee mug. We've sent out quite a few of them, and we love doing that. We love your interaction with us, and so the only caveat is if you've won a coffee mug before, if you've answered the question before correctly, then you're disqualified. Only one per viewer. And if you don't live in the continental North America, I think Canada and Mexico qualify as well. The company we use doesn't ship overseas. Sorry about that. So the shipping would be too expensive. So the question tonight is the same one as last week because we didn't get a lot of traction on it. And I think there was one attempted answer, but nothing came close. So here's the trivia question tonight. And Genevieve, you're disqualified because you know the answer. On my when my brother's daughter was killed, I went to Texas to see them. And on my way back from that trip, I was on the plane and I mentioned a book that I was reading. And what is the title and the author of the book that I was reading on the plane? I know that's a deep dive trivia question. You're going to either have to remember it or have to dig in, find the right chapter and dig into it. This is an open book test, so you are allowed to look in the book. So there it is. Anyway, that's the trivia question. First one in the chats to get it gets the mug, and we'd be happy to send you one. Anything else, Genevieve? I think that just about covers the
It does, and I don't want to delay the guest any longer, but I do feel like you never mentioned that you have a Patreon, and
I'm so bad at that.
You could also go support Dave on Patreon. It would be really incredible if you did.
For as little as $1 a month, we actually we do a lot of extra stuff. Like Bevan will post like last week she posted a video of my talk that I gave in Ontario last week. For Patreon supporters only. They get a sneak peek at it. It will be up later on our website. But if you just can't wait to hear my talk, then become a Patreon. But it does help us. It help us do all the stuff that we do. So thank you for mentioning that, Genevieve. I forgot. Bevan gave me a note, and I still forgot. I'm terrible. Maybe I just don't like asking for money. I don't know.
Yeah, it is one of the worst things to do.
I'm really excited to have our guest here tonight. And by the way, please call in if you'd like to talk, 217-375-9933. Without further ado, everyone, please welcome Amy Lowry. Amy!
Hey, guys.
So glad to have you on. Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry you had to sit backstage and listen to us yak, yak, yak. But
it was entertaining.
Yeah, well, yeah. And how about that intro music? How do you like that? Huh?
Oh, everybody? I was, David's up in the front of the room over here, and we were kind of, doing the, pretty white. I got to be honest, but yeah, it's pretty bad.
White breakdancing.
Oh, yeah, it's not
good. That's always pretty.
Yeah, it's not over by the whole thing.
Yeah, I know. I do it too. But the song does kind of get you moving.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've had fun with that. So really glad to have you on. We're going to dig into your story, which is quite amazing. And you are quite amazing. And after this show, our viewers are going to say, yeah, she's pretty fucking amazing. I've known you for how long now? Ooh. 3 years?
Oh, I think it's
4 years.
Yeah, at least. Yeah, at least.
Yeah. We met. You're part of our Middle Tennessee ex-Christian atheist group. Mm-hmm. And I don't live there anymore, but I'm still see all you folks every now. I think we're going to try to have a meetup when I come into town in October. So maybe you and David can make that.
Nice.
Because we used to do those every month. You became part of that group. I want to say in 2019.
Yes, 2019.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was before COVID hit, but yeah.
Yeah. Just about the time I moved away from Nashville.
Yeah. But after you left, we continued to go to meetings, and it really saved me in a lot of ways. So
yeah. We'll get into that too, because that's a big part of your story, I think. But you, you know, and I forgot to tell you this. We're not going to get to play one of your videos.
No, damn it.
I know. You were so excited about that. One of your Christian music videos. You were bebopping on that stuff. Yeah, we'll get into that in a minute. It's part of your story, but Ethan, my producer, he's so good to watch my back on this stuff, because YouTube would have flagged it a copyright issue and probably would have demonetized the episode and probably taken the episode down. So if you're curious about Amy, can we say your former last name so they can find you on YouTube?
Oh boy, yeah, it was Morris, Morriss.
Yeah. Check out Amy Morris on YouTube. This little girl can sing. You're like 5'0" and you've got this massive voice. It's just, you look at this little package. Wait, what is that? Is that sound coming out of that little girl?
Yeah.
You were a Christian music artist for several years.
Yeah.
Right. With Myrrh. Yeah. And adult contemporary, is that the category that they put you in?
Yeah. Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anyway, that I want to get into that part of your story too. So just, I guess, to lay the groundwork here, what was describe your upbringing in a short, give us a short synopsis of who Amy was growing up.
So I was born in 1970, so 52 years old, East Texas, small town, a couple of hours east of Dallas, oldest of three kids, all girls. And I was one of those kids that was in church, raised Southern Baptist, and I was in church at least 3 days a week, at least.
Wait, Sunday and Wednesday's the typical. What's the third day?
Well, apparently you've forgotten visitation. And you were obviously never part of GA's, Girls in Action.
No, because I'm not a girl.
Right. But
Genevieve, you can't relate to this. Genevieve's a cradle atheist. She can, whenever she hears this stuff, I see her eyes start bouncing around in her head like, what the fuck?
Yeah. It would have been the case had I not moved to rural North Carolina 7 years ago, I guess it was, and met a lot of people who I didn't realize it was a multi-day of the week function, but it totally is.
It was your life. It was your total life, right,
yes.
Amy?
Oh yeah, it was your life. And that was even before schools were part of churches.
Yeah. Christian schools, right.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's how I grew up. My dad was a deacon. And he also, we moved churches, and the pastor, we went with the pastor and started a new church. So he kind of, I don't know, what did they call that? He helped found. Church
planting.
Thank you. Church planting. So taught Sunday school, and he was a deacon and kind of a well-known businessman in this little town. And we really appeared to have the perfect little Christian family. And so what people didn't know is there was abuse in the house from early childhood on, really until I left home. And I didn't leave home until my early 20s. And that's a whole other conversation.
So when you say abuse,
yeah,
physical, sexual, all that?
All that, yeah.
From your father?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, correct. And so left East Texas and moved to San Antonio for a few years. My dad was also under FBI investigation for a short period of time for business dealings.
But all this time, he's a stand-up Christian guy, right?
That's correct. A deacon
to the public, right?
Deacon in church, yeah. And was a deacon also in San Antonio. And then they pulled us out of school and told everyone that they would be homeschooling us. And they did buy the curriculum, but there was no school that happened. So I was the only one that actually graduated high school, and I did that on my own and mailed it all in on my own. Like my other two sisters never did finish school. And so he had us out singing around the state and then around the country. We ended up moving to Los Angeles and got a record deal out there. But that was a pop music deal out in Los Angeles. And
you girls were how old at this point, roughly?
I was 17, 15, and 11 were our ages.
So you're like a singing gospel trio, but then they moved into pop when you got the record deal.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. The whole premise was he just really wanted us to be famous, whatever that meant and whatever that took is what he wanted.
So it wasn't about the message of the gospel. I mean, that's what it started as. But then if there was a pop deal, let's just do that, whatever it takes to get you.
Yeah.
Was he wanting the money or just the fame?
Well, he did get the money.
Okay.
So any money that we got in signing monies or publishing monies, like we never saw a penny of that. So,
really? Okay.
No. And I don't know how much you want me to get into.
Well, where's your mom in this? I mean, your dad is controlling and manipulating and doing all the abuse. Where's mom?
By his side.
And she knows all this is going on?
Oh, sure. So part of the tactic, ironically, it was a tactic I saw a lot throughout my life, but isolation was super important, which was why he pulled us out of school and homeschooled us, or said they homeschooled us. And so just keeping us, we were never, let me see, we were never allowed to have relationships that lasted any length of time. So
like friends or boyfriends or anything?
All of the above.
Okay.
All of the above. So we had to cut those off at a certain point. Yeah.
That was just his method of controlling you.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. And tell me where so you're raised as a Christian in a Christian home and the upstanding Christian family in church 3 days a week. Where is your personal faith at this point? What's your relationship with God like?
I would have told you that it saved my life. This is what I would have told you for the majority of my life. That anyone
that was your narrative. That was the narrative that was in your head.
Well, the only way I knew to make sense of my life was this is what I told people when abuse started to happen, and anybody that's been in a house that abuse has taken place, you kind of sense that it's happening, that there's an undercurrent that builds up. If there's about to be an episode, okay, if there's about to be something coming your way, for lack of a better way I would go to my room and I would hide. I would shut the door. I would read my Bible. I would pray. Like that was my go-to. If I could get away, that's what I would do.
When you say an episode, I want to unpack that as much as you're comfortable with, okay?
Sure.
Is it like you see a storm brewing in the distance? There's some kind of emotional storm that you see your dad's countenance changes. What did that look like the best you can remember?
Yes. So you would just know, and I don't even know how to articulate what the actual triggers necessarily were, but you knew when there was something going on under the surface, whether someone had done or said something, or there was a situation. It could be hundreds of things that put him in that space. And if you were in his way, or if you pushed back or didn't comply, then you would pay a price. I was excellent at complying. I was probably the best at complying. And so I probably got the the least end of the worst of it. Like I probably that would be my guess.
So resistance would only provoke him more.
That's right.
So these episodes of abuse, were they fueled by anger? Would you say?
That's an interesting question. I don't know if it was fueled by anger or just fueled by just narcissism, just pathology.
A desire to control.
Yeah, it was. I think it was much more than just anger. I think that's too simple.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I know that it's very common in abusive situations if somebody has like a very hierarchical belief system, especially about family and gender roles, and they're more predisposed to be abusive. How do you think your family's religion sort of played into those kind of justifications?
There were a lot of, that's an excellent question. There are a lot of contradictions. So girls belong to their dad until one day they belong to their husbands, right? So we were under his authority. That being said, side note, he had to sign a contract that he would manage us and own us for the rest of our life. That was literally the contract.
Oh my God.
Yeah, of course it would never hold up in court, but he tried. Yeah, this is yeah. So back to your question. So all of that played a part for sure, but the contradiction is that if you were to look at our pop music, like just the one video that we had and released, it was very sexually charged, especially for 11, 15, and 17, right? And that was never an issue. Like that was like, you just look the other way. So if it served his purpose, I guess the gender roles were very important. And if they did not serve his purpose, then we just didn't talk about it. And that was certainly, you just go with it. Whatever it is today, you go with it, right?
Well, you learn to you slip into survival mode, I would imagine.
That's your whole life.
Yeah, you learned how to survive best was to run and hide and run, and to you that was running to Jesus and running to the safety of God's arms. Your sisters weren't as smart in that sense. They may be more resistant or just angry or younger. I don't know, but you said they got the brunt of it because they resisted. And I think to Genevieve's question, I mean, you and I know, Amy, in that evangelical world, it is the man is the ruler. The man is the head of the home. He's the head of the woman. I remember when I was writing my memoir and thinking there's a chapter called Giving Daughters Away, and I remember writing that, I wrote that song, Give Her Away, for my oldest daughter's wedding, and never thought for a second when I was in it how weird that was. Who gives this woman to be married?
Right.
As though I own her and can give her to her new husband. I mean, that is just insane to those of us on this side of the fence.
It's sick.
But in that world, it was so normal. I'm the authority of this woman, and I'm now giving this authority to this young man.
It was more than normal. It was right and wrong. It was moral and immoral,
Yeah. But so your dad, steeped in that hierarchical worldview, that Christian worldview, it sounds like he ruled your mom. I mean, she was just a dormant church mouse to him, and she probably, or maybe possibly, earlier on, she might have resisted and bore the brunt of his anger, his wrath, and learned to just shut up and be quiet, to the detriment of her daughters.
Yeah, there's honestly no telling what she endured. But, you know, there did come a time after years of therapy that, you know, I ended up writing a letter, and that was the last communication I ever had with them. And in that letter, you know, I laid it all out. And at the end of the letter, I said to my mom, because at this point I was a mom. And so I said, I don't understand as a mother what you didn't do, because there's no one in the world that would ever harm my children, and I would stand by no matter what. I don't care who it is. Nobody's hurting my babies. And I said, you know, you're worse than him.
That's how you felt. Yeah.
I still feel
because as a mom, you could relate more to her passivity than you could to his narcissism, right?
Yeah. And I understand that she was abused in ways that I don't understand. However, as a mother, I cannot get past not protecting my children. I just can't.
Would you say that you felt pity for him and anger toward her? Would that be accurate, or is that too generic, too broad?
I don't think I would say I felt pity toward him at all.
Anger?
I did for a while. And honestly, at this point, like, they're just not really relevant. And I don't really ever think about them. And I know that sounds really strange. I've done a lot of work, a lot.
Oh, no, it doesn't sound strange at all. I've learned how to do that with my own family issues, daughters. My father was not sexually abusive toward me that I know of. I don't, if it was, it's blocked out, but he was definitely emotionally abusive all through my life. And I had to learn how to block that out, how to dissociate from that. You can't carry that connection and maintain any kind of equilibrium mentally and emotionally. I understand completely.
Yeah.
I want to take a call if you don't mind. We've got, it hasn't been screened because I don't think we've got screeners right now, but we're just going to take a call. It could be anything. If it's not good, hey, Kim Possible, I saw that you won the mug. Weekly support, my Antichrist 666. We all go to hell after you do this show, Amy. You know that, right? Sorry, I should have warned you beforehand. Yeah, I should have warned you beforehand. But once you do this show, you're going straight to hell. I hope it's okay with you. It's going to be a party.
I'd have to believe in it first. I'm not worried about it.
Okay, I agree. After this call, we'll get back to your story, but we'll take a break and take this call. And if it's no good, I'll mute him. But Ethan says, "Don't take it off." I said, "Well, what's the worst that can happen?" Hello, you're on with Genevieve, Dave, and Amy. Who are we talking to?
Hey, everyone. How are you tonight?
Good. What's your name?
Yeah. My name's Dana. I live in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay. What can we help you with tonight?
Yeah. Actually, Dave, I've been listening to you off and on for probably about a year now.
Well, thank you.
Your story has really moved me a lot.
Well, thank you.
I'm basically a new atheist, like, as far as coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And where I live at is a very highly religious area.
We can relate. Amy and I can relate. Amy's in Tennessee. I'm in North Carolina, but I lived in Tennessee a long time, and it's pretty lonely there.
Well, the thing about it is like, I don't know. There's a lot of Bible thumpers here, but yet at the same time, you have drugs everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll just go ahead and say where I'm at. I'm in Middletown specifically, and there's the rate of drugs and crime on top of them throwing Bibles at you everywhere you go is just insane. And the fact that I've actually been more vocal here recently about how I perceive things has really, really, really threw many people around me for a loop. And And
The fact that you've come out as a vocal as an atheist, you mean?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. My parents, I was actually very, very, very fortunate in this matter, but my parents specifically made sure that they never tried to push any type of belief on me whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And
You were
the
lucky.
first religion I was ever, yes, very, very, very. And the first religion I was ever exposed to was, believe this one or not, but it was Mormonism.
Hmm.
And yeah, and like I was handed a Book of Mormon by one of my school friends, and I remember the blue cover on it and everything, and I just kind of took it home, and my dad looked at it. He's like, "Are you sure you want to read that?" And I was just like, well, I don't know, Dad. What do you think? He's like, I think them people are crazy. So
I think he
said,
was
but
right.
go ahead. If you want to read it, go ahead.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just kind of took the book in my room, and it kind of fell behind my bed, and I didn't really think nothing else about it after that. It kind of got lost in the sea. So anyway, I really started questioning things, I would say, about that time period. And you know, you see things on TV and you see things on the news, and you know, especially this area, when people start making comments to you, well, if you don't go get saved, you're gonna fry in hell, and your
Mm-hmm.
parents, I can't believe your parents don't have you in some kind of church or something. You're gonna fry in hell if you don't go to church. And I'm just
Well,
like,
we're all going to be
So
there.
loving.
Yeah, we're all going to be there too, Dana. So it'll be a good time. You'll
Yeah.
have good
right.
company.
And, right, that's what I'm saying. I'm going. I've already got a one-way ticket with all the shit I've done in my life.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say shit on.
That's
Oh.
okay. You can curse.
Anyway,
That's allowed here.
Yeah.
I had my dad was my best friend in the world, and I actually did 4 years in prison back when I was 22, and I got in some trouble around here, and you know, I fully admitted it, and I went and did my time. I left my 2 kids with my parents while I was gone, and basically I did those 4.5 years, and I got out, and I have done everything in my power since then. I'm on my 2nd college degree. I'm getting ready to finish up here in a few months.
Good for you.
And
Congratulations.
I'm in criminal justice studies right now.
Oh, wow.
And I'm gonna go ahead and go through with a master's, and then eventually finish the PhD on top of it. But
Well, good for you. Sounds like you turned your life around. No God needed.
right, exactly. Anyway, I'm trying to get back on the point. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I
Go ahead.
tragically lost my dad. I tragically lost my dad in 2009. And
Sorry.
my entire world came crashing. And at 57 years old, he was diagnosed with lung cancer, and I had about 15 months with him. And that's when I really started questioning, what the hell is going on here? Why? You know, if there's any damn God up here, I don't understand why this shit's going on. I really don't get it.
Yeah.
And, you know, 15 months of just watching him suffer, and it was horrific. And I would get so mad at people that would come around my dad and be like, well, we're going to pray for you. I remember one day I was like, you know what? F you and your prayers. Take that and get out of here with that. I don't want to hear it, and neither does he. Because he felt the same way I did. And he was mad. He was very angry at the fact that he felt like he got cheated.
Yeah.
And what I'm basically dealing with right now, and here's the problem. I have accepted the fact that, you know, there's nothing after this. But I'm scared.
What are you scared of? What do you mean you're
scared
scared?
of not being anymore.
Yeah.
I'm scared of not existing anymore. I'm scared of not being with my kids. I'm scared. Like, I think I'm going through some type of existential crisis right now.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And
I understand that. First off, so I don't forget, and someone can maybe put it in the chat. If you haven't talked to Recovering from Religion, I would encourage you to reach out to them. They have some great agents that are trained to walk you through things, anything regarding religion, whether it's the fear of death, the fear of hell, loss of community, whatever. And we'll talk more about that kind of trauma later in the show because Amy has got some things to say about that. But in terms of fear of dying, I do talk about this a lot with, as you know, if you've followed my work in the last year. And the thing that I say a lot is the reality. I think if we really think through what dying is going to be like, because we don't really know, because none of us have done that yet. But once we pass from living to not living, we're not going to be aware that we've passed from living to not living. We're not going to wake up and realize, oh my God, I'm dead now. We're not going to have an awareness that we're no longer alive. Now, that's hard to conceptually get our heads wrapped around because we don't know what that state looks like. We don't have any memory of who we were before we were born because we were not anything. We were nothing. We were a little cell. And then we became a life. But we don't have any memory of what that was before we became a life. All we know is the life we've had. And I understand that what you're probably saying more is that you don't want this life to end because you have things you want to do. You have people you want to be with, your kids, and you're scared of this life ending before you get to live all the life you want to live. That I can totally relate with because that's what I experience every day. All I can say to that is, and what I say all the time is, make sure to the best of your ability that you're getting all you can out of this life. Live it like it's the only life you've got because it is the only life you've got. And make sure you're writing your own. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, make sure you're writing your own story and not letting someone else write it. Make sure that you're in control of your narrative and not someone else. That's the thing that religion did to us, is it controlled the narrative. It told the story for us, and we had to subject ourselves to it. Once we realized that was a lie, and that we get to live our own life, there's the freedom. And that's the freedom we're talking about with Amy tonight. The thing that she found, the thing that I found after a long life of subjecting myself to this false deity. The fact that you woke up from that, Dana, a while back is a credit to you and a credit to your dad, I think, and how he taught you to think and to question things. And so I really am sorry for that loss in your life because it sounds like it was a big one. I know Genevieve can relate to that because she lost her dad a little over a year ago suddenly. And it sounds like you're making the effort to get what you can out of this life and make sure that you're living it to the best of your ability and on your own terms. Do you feel like you're doing that as best you can?
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I cry all the time.
I've made the conscious decision probably about a month ago. And I talked to my husband about this. And I told him, what I was going through. And my dad's been gone 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
August 31st, the date just passed. And I decided that day that it's the here and now. I'm going to start living my life now.
Good.
Because I've worked 7 days a week for years. with a day off here and there. And I've worked hard to make sure that my kids would be taken care of if anything ever happened. Because another long story, but basically my dad married somebody and she took everything and split.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
When he died. Yeah. So I've made that decision. I'm going to start living now because I'm 43 now and my kids are 22 and 24, and it's like, okay, now I can breathe.
Good.
So,
well, good for you.
Yeah. I also have a therapist that I talk to every week, and he's been
good.
Amazing.
I was going to suggest that. Yeah.
So,
well, Amy, do you have anything to add to Dana? Because I know you've rebooted your life much like I did. What would your response to Dana's call be, Amy?
I think it's awesome that you're seeing a therapist. I think that you need to do what makes you happy. And Dave's right. Like, we don't know what happens after this. I have wishes and maybe hopes of what happens after this, but what's important is doing what makes you happy and taking what maybe people might see as a risk. It's not a risk. Like, this is your life. Whatever you want to do, like, go for it. That thing you've been waiting for the right time, go for it. Like, do it.
Carpe the fucking diem.
That's right. And be you. Like,
that's right.
Yeah. Live the truest version of yourself.
That's great advice.
Thank you.
Well, Dana, we really appreciate your call and thank you for supporting. And by the way, if you'll reach out to me, I know the area you live in the Cincinnati area. There is a good free thinking group there. If you're not connected with them, I'd be happy to connect you.
Really?
Yeah, I've actually spoken at their meeting, and I'll be speaking there probably later this year or next year. So I will be in the area. But there's a good group of folks there. And in fact, we have an upcoming guest in a couple of weeks, Bart Campolo, who's a part of that group. And I can definitely connect you with some awesome people so you not feel so isolated. So reach out to me, send me an email. Send me an email. You go to my website, daveoutloud.org, and you can send an email through that. And I'll definitely connect you and we'll stay in touch. How's that sound, Dana?
That sounds amazing, Dave. Thank
All
you
right.
so much. You guys are great.
Thank you for calling. We appreciate your support. You hang in there, girl.
Hey, I will. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye. That's why we do what we do, Genevieve. Wow.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys. I'm glad we took that. It was unscreened. We got a screener now, but I took the chance. The worst that could happen is it's some kind of a troll, and I just drop them real quick. So, Amy, let's jump forward in your story. You dealt with this abuse. But you clearly, about what age did you get free from all that, and how did you get free from that? So
about probably mid-30s, probably right about 35. Both of my kids at that point were in school. Maybe I was 34 because the youngest was in preschool. But I remember getting ready to take them to school one day, and well, I need to back up.
You were living at home still? No.
No.
When we took the call, you were singing with your sisters in LA and under the control of your father. So how did you get out from that abusive situation? At what point did you start? I mean, a lot of times you can't get out of those things. They're so controlling.
Well, again, I was in my early 20s before I got out of that house.
Okay.
I had met on a blind date this guy. And remember, I had told you, like, if we had relationships that lasted past a certain length of time, those were ended. Okay. So I had met this guy on a blind date, and he's sitting over here.
Was he really cute? He was so
hot. I saw him from across the parking lot, and I didn't know him. This is a true story. The church parking lot, I might add. Uh-oh. Anyway, so we went out on this blind date.
Was he a part of your church? Was he in the same church?
He went. So we moved here when I was 21.
Okay.
And I was a part of a church in Franklin, and that was the church that he grew up in.
Yeah.
And so anyway, got set up on a blind date, went out with him. On the third date, like I knew I loved him, like on the third date.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Well, he is adorable. I know David. He's adorable.
He is adorable. He is adorable. And just the kindest, most genuine person I'd ever met.
He,
and still
he
have.
really is. Yeah, he really is.
What you see is what you get. He is a terrible actor. I will just say that. So anyway, we had been dating just a few months, and I was writing for Sony Music at the time, had just signed the deal with Myrrh. And
as a Christian artist.
As a Christian artist, but I was also writing country music and like publishing separate from that. And Reba McEntire wanted my sisters and I to go on tour with her and do her background vocals. And,
oh my goodness.
Yeah. And all that. And then
that's big time.
Yeah, it was big time. And so we flew with her on her private plane to a show in Texas.
Oh my goodness. I didn't know this part of your story. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And just a side note, she is amazing.
Is she?
Oh, just literally the most genuine, kind.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Oh, just amazing. Yeah. Anyway.
Now, how did your dad feel about this? Because this was something out of his control.
We were going to do it. No, we were doing it.
Oh, no. This was something he was benefiting from at this point.
Yeah. This was not an option. This was not an option.
This was your big ticket. This was your chance to the big time. Right.
This was it. So, or second round of it, I should say.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, David drove to the place where the concert was. We had flown there with Reba. We were sitting in the parking lot of a grocery store, and he said to me, let's just get married. Let's just elope. And I was like, what? Like, are you serious? And he was
now,
like,
did your dad know that you were dating David?
Yes, but he had already started setting the stage. So that's the other part. We had I knew what was happening.
Right.
So we had sort of set little traps for my dad that he was unaware of. But I wanted to show David, like, this is what's happening.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So like I was with David, wasn't supposed to be at the mall one night. And David called and asked for me at home. And my dad was like, she's not here. And isn't that what happened? I'm not here. And and then he said something. He lied about something. I don't remember what happened. But anyway, we caught him in a lie. And it's the thing he always did. He was trying to, drive a wedge and split us up and all the whole.
But this is you in your 20s, right? You're not some 14-year-old girl that has to
20.
be. Yeah.
21.
I mean, let's think about this for a minute. 21 years old.
21. But,
Genevieve, can you imagine?
Oh my goodness.
But I had never been out in the wild. Like I had never been out from under supervision. Like it's weird. It's hard to even.
No, I understand. Yeah, I understand it. It's the very controlling environment you were subjected to.
Yeah. So anyway, he said, let's elope. And I was like, okay. So a few weeks later, right? It was a few weeks later, I like stuffed some clothes in a big giant tote, and that was it. And that's how I left the house. But it took another 12 years for me to make the break. That's why I jumped to my 30s when it all kind of came crashing down.
That's when emotionally things crash down. Yeah. So you go on tour with Reba, or did that last?
No, because I got married.
Okay, so you just ditched the whole thing and said, I'm getting out of this shitstorm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You could have been a famous country singer, Amy. I mean,
Yeah, except for I didn't want to be famous or a singer. So
no. Oh my God, I'm so glad David rescued you. I'm sure that didn't go well with Dad.
oh, it was not good.
Yeah.
It was not good. But again, like there was another decade there. It took me for things to start to unravel. So in that decade, 10 to 12 years, one of my sisters was missing for several years. She did go on tour with Reba.
Oh, did she? Okay.
She did. And then she was let go for reasons I'm not really sure. I, you know.
Yeah.
And so she went missing, and she had kids and was married and walked away from her family and went missing. And so about the time I was 34-ish is when I got a phone call that it was actually my grandmother that said, don't tell your parents that I'm calling you, but your sister is in a hospital. There was a major event that happened, and she's in North Carolina. So I got a friend and drove overnight to go get her, and drove her back here to Nashville, and found a place to get her checked in and hopefully get her some help. And over quite a long period of time, that there were several places she was in and out of, and it just
so when you took off with David, did you kind of lose touch with the family at that point?
No,
you didn't.
No, over that 10 to 12 years, it was just kind of a slow unraveling. And then when my sister went missing, and then I got that call, I don't know how to, it's almost like an out of body experience. Like there were years, and there still are years of my life that are just missing. And so when that happened, some of that started to slowly come back.
When you say come back, some of that, like the memories of the abuse, and
That's
so
right.
you had just blocked it all out.
Yes.
Apparently. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And now when you and David got married, did you guys do the Christian marriage? You're in church, you're a Christian couple, you got kids, you're the happy Christian family?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you hadn't dealt with all this emotional and sexual abuse. You had just stuffed it into a corner somewhere and went about your life loving God, right?
Yes.
Okay. Pretty normal to do that. You know that, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's a survival mechanism.
Right.
It's what we have to do to survive, or we just go crazy.
Right.
I didn't have nearly that level of abuse, but my childhood was very chaotic and rife with abuse from my dad up till about age 10. I have very few memories of my early childhood. Yeah. Just a little snapshot of this event or that scene, like a scene in a movie would pop up on the screen.
Right.
Of my life before age 7 or 8, nothing. Just blank. Is that kind of what you experienced?
Yes. The main memories that I had were of a very brief period of my maternal grandparents, who I attribute my resilience to. I'm the only one of the girls that had them in my life. My grandmother died when she was 2 years younger than I am now.
Oh, wow.
And then my dad forced my granddad out of our lives. So I lost both of them pretty much around the same time. But my resilience honestly comes from what I got from them for 7 years.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, those are the memories that I did have.
Because they were good memories.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's probably why. I don't know. I'm no therapist. What do you think caused, this 10 to 12 years later when things started unraveling, what did that look like, and what do you think caused that?
So when I went to get my sister and brought her back, that was the switch. And that's that's when I wrote the letter. That's when I went into therapy. That's when I wrote the letter. And there was a specific moment, and this is where I was going earlier, when I was taking my kids to school one morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that many people that weren't connected with my church at that time. And so I remember kind of watching myself from this out of body thing where I'm watching myself go through the motions. And all I could think that this particular morning was, get the kids ready, get them to school, just get them to school, just get them to school. I got them to school, and then I drove to this barely friend's house, like barely a friend, right? But not connected with anything. And I just rang her doorbell. It was like 7:45 in the morning, and I just laid on her porch bawling, and she opened the door, and there I was, like I had fallen apart.
Wow.
And it just kind of all came crashing back. Not every memory, but what had happened, if that makes sense.
Yeah. How did this affect you and David? I mean, was David surprised by this, or he kind of saw it coming, or what do you think?
I don't want to answer for him. I don't know that he was surprised. My dad, aside from the abuse, was a fucking horrible person. Like, just generally, anybody that knew him, you know how narcissists are great at first, and the shit hits the fan, and you're like, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah.
So he was just that person to everyone. So he wasn't surprised. But I'd never told him either. So
okay. So he didn't know that your past. He didn't know the details of it.
No, not the full extent.
And so that's when you got into therapy, and that's when you started dealing with the trauma, essentially.
That's right.
But you were still a Christian at this point.
Right.
So how were you, I guess, because I want to get to the part of your deconstruction. And what church were you in at this point?
Grace Chapel in Franklin.
You were already at Grace Chapel. Okay.
I was, yeah. And I was, at this point, I was either working part or full time there. I worked there for 11 years.
Yeah. You were the worship leader there. Funny story. That was the church I went to after after the shitstorm at New Song in Franklin. And when anybody who's read the book knows that we changed it in the book to New Life, but whatever. I don't care at this point. Sue me. Come on, bring it. I don't care. And that went, I was fired from on staff there, and I ended up going to Grace Chapel, and I actually write about my a little bit of the interaction I had with the pastor, Steve Berger, and after the death of his son, tragically in an accident. There's a whole chapter there where, he has me praying for him, and I'm talking to my daughter in the hospital. I mean, just horrible shit going on. But I led a little exodus of about 100 people from New Song to Grace Chapel, and I kind of look now. Yeah, I know, right? It's kind of like from the frying pan into the fire. I didn't know that every church was fucking toxic.
Right. Who knows?
But you were that was my first. We didn't know each other. We didn't meet for another years, actually. But because that was about in 2009, so you and I didn't meet for another 10 years.
Yeah.
But you were the worship leader there, and I remember seeing you on stage and think, wow, God, she's really talented. And when you could work the crowd, girl, you could emotionally manipulate those people.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
That's the gift of worship leaders.
It is. And also the source of many apologies in the past 7 years.
Well, you were doing what you
apologizing.
You were doing what you thought was right. That was what you thought God had called you to do. That was your gifting, right?
Right.
Your ministry.
Yeah. So I do want to just back up a little bit here, because so you were a believer when you had this moment of you drop off your kids and you go to this barely a friend's house, and you went there specifically because they weren't part of your church circle. Is that correct? Or was it just kind of that was the person who came to mind, or were you just kind of on autopilot?
That was the person that came to mind, and they weren't in leadership there. So I think maybe not even a conscious thought, but I knew that it wasn't going to become part of a larger conversation.
Yeah.
You felt safer to be a little
felt safer.
anonymous. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I get that. That's a good question, Genevieve. That's
Yeah, that's fascinating because I know that a lot of people, they talk about their church being, that's the community that rallies behind them, that they can, put it all out there. I mean, it's your testimonial, it's the prayer requests. It's kind of like, that's the way that everybody knows everybody's business. It's interesting that even while you were a believer, you gravitated away from the leaders.
the
Because
church eats their own.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's a part of your story here. A part of my story. I mean, my God. And this is the thing I was thinking today, Amy. I know your story because I know you. I would never have heard of it otherwise. We had a show earlier last year, Genevieve, you may remember, of another situation where a woman was abused by her dad as a Christian, and the whole church cover up kind of stuff. And so these are just two random stories that we know about because we know the people. How many are there out there that we don't know, that we never hear about?
Well, just generally speaking, rape is the most underreported crime in America, just generally speaking. And so when you're talking about a religious system, not just Christianity, but when you're talking about a religious system that really is excellent and set up to invite in predators and to protect predators and blame the victim. I mean, that is the system.
The system is rife. And as we know in the Catholic Church, as we've seen lately in the last couple of years with the Baptists, Southern Baptists have their own, the evangelicals across the board. I mean, there is no church group that is untouched by this scandal.
That's right.
And almost without exception, the church always tries to defend their name, to blame, shift to victim blame, and let's keep the brand clean. We've got to defend the brand.
And that's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
That's all of it right there. They want to control the narrative to protect the brand, to keep the money rolling in, and to keep the perceived power in place.
Mm-hmm. And it's always, well, now on this side of the fence, it's stunning to me that no one stops to consider in that world. And I've said this since I've gotten out of it, Jesus never changed anyone. It's clear that no one's life is being transformed by the power of the Holy Spirit, because people act the same within the church and without the church. Saved and lost. People do bad things. People do good things. There's no transformed lives that we're looking at. We see that over and over again. Why can't we just admit that that's the fucking truth? I don't know.
Well, it's just like there's no magic pill to make somebody lose the 50 pounds or the 20 pounds. There's no magic anything to change someone's life or life trajectory or way of thinking. Like, that takes work. That's individual work.
And the church, wouldn't you say, Amy, and I know we're going to get to this too, you're studying to be a therapist, but wouldn't you say that the church exacerbates the problem by not encouraging people to get actual trained therapy, and instead does a thing called pastoral counseling, where the pastors give you a dose of Word of God and prayer? It's
so dangerous.
It's horrible.
I can't believe it's legal. It's so dangerous.
I did it.
Oh, Dave.
I'm as guilty as can be.
I rubbed Crisco oil on my fucking front door.
To anoint your house?
Dave is like, what the hell are you talking about? Yes, ma'am. We put oil.
Well,
okay.
Amy, it's not going to work. Crisco doesn't work. It has to be extra virgin olive oil from Jerusalem. Jesus Christ, did no one tell you what to do?
Wrong oil.
Wrong oil. It's not, you can't just put Crisco. It's got to be olive oil from Jerusalem,
Okay, well,
which you can get from your friendly neighborhood televangelist for $29.95 a drop. I'm sorry. We make fun of it. I mean, we're laughing about it, but it's tragically horrible. It has done
yes,
great
dangerous.
damage to
Yes.
many, many people, and it is still doing it.
Yeah, I mean, just when you rub the oil on the door, or you pray the prayer, or you do whatever it is, the voodoo that they tell you to do, because that's what it is. It's just
voodoo.
It's voodoo.
Yeah, it's a magic prayer.
You think about this: when you do this and nothing changes,
Right.
then something's wrong with me.
Exactly.
I'm broken. I'm damaged. I'm not fixable. Everybody else God loves and can help, but not me.
Or if you do, we've all heard the stories of the drug addict who gave his life to Jesus and got straight. He got himself straight, but Jesus got the credit.
Right.
And if he relapses, then it's on him.
Right.
You you got your eye off the ball. You quit trusting in God. You weren't in the word. You've got secret sin. You didn't have enough faith. Have you heard all of those slogans? I mean,
yes, absolutely. Well, you just told me I had the wrong oil. So
well, that was a big problem right there. I can't believe your elders. I mean, David was an elder. He should have fucking known better.
Well, and I was under his freaking authority. He should do better, David.
well, then it's his fault. You and David are in the church. Everything's you're starting to get therapy. Is it starting to track? You feel like you're getting better? I mean, do you feel like you're getting a handle on the trauma and starting to feel like life is working now? Take us through those years. You're in the church. Everything's going great.
In the church, started to see some things behind the scenes that I couldn't live with, and live with myself. Went to go speak to powers that be there.
Things like church, like spiritual abuse, control. What kind of things specifically? If you not to name names, but
all of that.
Okay, all right.
All of those things.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And went to speak to the powers that be. And at this point, I'd been there about 11 years on staff.
Okay.
And basically was told, it is what it is. And when I left the meeting, the last thing that I was told in the meeting was, if I leave there, let me get this right. If you leave here and you tell people the things that you've said in here on Facebook or in person on Instagram, whatever, then you will no longer have control of the narrative. We will take control of the narrative.
We'll call you a liar or whatever.
Yes. And I knew what that meant because I'd seen him do it to other people. And I may have said, bring it on, buddy. That may have been what I said.
No, knowing you, I think you probably said something like that because you're a little feisty.
That's exactly what I said.
Okay, bring it, cowboy.
Bring it on, buddy. And they did. And and they did. So
did you flash? Was there ever a time when you saw that kind of control or efforts to control you and flash back to your father's efforts to control you? Did you ever put those two together?
Not initially and not in my mind, but my body responds to trauma very quickly, and trauma is trauma. And so it responds in the same way. So literally that day when I drove, I couldn't breathe. I was backing out. I'll never forget it. I was backing out. And when I have a trauma response, like I can't breathe, and it feels like there's a truck sitting on the top of me. And so I was doing that, and I was trying to get my breath. And I thought, if I pass out, I'm driving, what in the world? There's a railroad track that I would always pass when I got closer to home. And the minute I hit that railroad track, I'm not kidding you, I started to breathe.
Mm.
Mhm.
The minute I crossed that railroad track. And
Why?
that's when I don't know.
Okay.
I think because the only reason I ever went over that railroad track was to go to church. There's literally nothing else over there in my life. So I think my body just knew you don't ever have to come this way again.
Yeah, you're safe now. Mm-hmm.
You're safe. You don't ever have to.
And you kind of knew that you would never go back to that church at that point?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I knew it was not safe.
But you were still on staff, right?
I had actually given my notice, but I had said I would stay to train the next person.
Okay.
And so I was still coming in.
That sounds so similar to my story of being released from the church after these meetings,
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
God.
The meetings.
The meetings. Oh God, the power, the behind the scenes. I've had several people tell me that the parts of my book they found interesting were my descriptions of the behind the scenes meetings and the shit that goes on behind closed doors that no church members ever see.
Oh yeah.
If they did, they would run like hell.
You would hope. Yep. Yeah. No, they have no idea. They have no idea. Yep.
So to wrap this part up, because I want to get to what you're doing now, we do have another call. We may have time, but I don't want to keep. We got about 20 minutes left.
Okay.
Hey, Wonder, thank you for that super sticker, $3.99. Thank you for your support. She, her. That didn't tell me after that event at the church, and you and David are still there. He's an elder, and you've given your notice, but you're still loving Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And so you left the church.
Yep.
And what happened to your faith?
So we tried a couple other churches, even tried to go back to an old church, and we just weren't feeling that. And I'll never forget, I think it was the last time that we ever visited a church here in town. We left the service and we get the car and I'm sobbing. And at this point, David, just what you see is what you get. He looks over at me and he goes, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, I just don't know if I don't know, maybe I'm just doing everything wrong. And I don't know what all I said, but I was losing it. And I said, "Don't you feel that after hearing this sermon?" And he was like, "No, what I feel is manipulated.
Oh,
what I feel is that was a bunch of crap.
Good.
What I feel is I never want to go back there again."
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, I went right back to it. I went right back to it. My mind,
same shit.
Well, it's the pathways in my brain that is all I know.
That's all you knew. Right.
So it wasn't long after that, little to my, I didn't know, but he was listening to the Thinking Atheist. Yeah. I had no idea that he was doing that, but
that Seth Andrews, he has messed up so many people.
Oh God.
Damn it, Seth.
Thinking, God. So I walked in one night from somewhere, and David was in the kitchen. Never will forget it. And I said, "Hey, how are you?" And he has this look on his face, and I'm like, "What's up?" And he goes, "I don't know how to tell you this." And I went, "Just tell me." And at this point, I'm like, "Oh my God, what is he going to say?"
What has he been doing?
Yeah, exactly. He goes, "I don't think I believe any of that stuff."
Oh my God.
And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, why?" It's like, we can talk about that. So he gave me, he said, "Listen to this episode." And it was the Thinking Atheist. The episode was called The Silent Witness. And I listened to that thing and I was out.
Wow.
Now, that was it. I was like, done. But then it was the unraveling of the, am I going to hell or am I not? Is there a hell? And then, it was all of that. And that took a really long time and a new therapist. So yeah. It's a lot.
And so it was about that time that we met.
Yes.
I had been out of faith by then. I think I had let go of all of that about 2011. So by the time we met, I'd been out about 8 years, and you guys were just getting out of it. I know you guys were still fresh because this has really only been 4 or 5 years ago, all total.
Oh, he says 3.5. I thought it was 4.
Yeah. It's still. I mean, you guys, people don't understand how long it takes to unravel the. It's like these ropes or something in your head, and you just once you cut it, you still have to unravel all the threads. Thread's a better word.
Identity. It's your identity.
Yeah, completely.
Everything is attached to that. Everything.
Yeah, and folks who've just been casual churchgoers or kind of tipped their hat to God and then came to the conclusion, he's really not real. I don't think I want to go to church anymore. They don't understand this level of involvement, and it's just everything. And when that is gone, you don't know who you are.
Right.
So you had to deal with that. You had
and no
to
one was allowed to talk to me. Remember that too.
That's right.
I had no friends.
So you lost all your friends.
Lost all my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Now I will say this, and you know this, it wasn't long after we left all of that we reached out to some people that had left the church years before us.
Yeah.
And we had done what was done to us. We didn't speak to them. We did what was done to us. And they were really good. David and he were really good friends. And David called him one day and said, "This is where we are." And he said, "Man, I'm excited. Let's meet for coffee."
Yeah, I've met them. They're wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. And thus began the apology tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've gotten free from all that. You mean, I've heard you say before, you're not mad at God. You're not mad. You're just free. You're just a lightness. Describe what you experienced once you let go of all that in terms of how you felt.
Well, I really love people now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't say I love people and then try to change them.
Yeah.
I don't say love the sinner and hate the sin. I don't, because that's bullshit.
Yeah.
I actually love people, and I want to help people for no other reason than I want to help people. And I want to be friends with people, not because I want to, evangelize, but because I want to be friends with people.
Mm-hmm.
And I make decisions in my life based on how am I going to learn the most? How am I going to grow the most? What's going to make me happy? What's going to let me spend more time with my kids and my husband?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, just waking up and going, there's a whole world out there. What have I been doing?
Aren't Sundays great now?
Oh my God, you're the best. Dave refuses to do anything on Sundays.
Nope. It's our day.
Yeah.
Let me take this call, then I want to wrap up about how you're moving forward and what's next for you. But we got Sue, she, her in Ohio. Story about abuse in the church. Never heard of that. Hey, Sue.
Hi.
Hi there. What, you're on with Dave, Genevieve, and Amy. What can we do for you?
Hi. No, I called. I can just share my story. I was just browsing and the show popped out, and I'm familiar with the topic and things like that.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for calling. You've got a story about abuse in the church, you said?
Yeah. I grew up in the church since I was, tiny, and I remember I really never liked it as a kid, but I forced myself to sort of do the whole cognitive dissonance thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it always bothered me. I tried to ignore it. I figured it must be maturity when you don't, it doesn't bother you anymore. You sort of reach a level that you're not fighting against that. So I had boyfriends when I was growing up, probably 18 years old, and so my dad never approved of any of them. And one of them was Catholic, and my dad said, no, because they have all these idols and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I dated other guys that they weren't really religious. My dad didn't approve. And then there was this guy that he was the son of a pastor. And then my dad approved. And
Oh,
I think it's
okay.
natural for kids to want to seek approval from their parents. My dad in particular, he was sort of like my way or the highway, which is
Mm-hmm.
now that I'm older, it resembles like God, the Christian God. It's
Yeah,
sort of like black and white.
that's kind of his attitude.
And
My way or hell.
yeah, and he said, yeah, you finally brought someone worthy, to
Mm-hmm.
come into this house. So the person that I dated, the guy, he like was very very like a ray of sun. He was just, oh, you're great, you're this, you're that, like very overwhelming. And I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have that growing up, so
Mm-hmm.
there was a need for like love, but that wasn't love, because love is, now I understand that there's a process and it needs to grow. It's not something that's infatuation, but I mistaked it. So eventually we went into this camping trip and whatnot. Then the guys sort of realized that I didn't really go along with a lot of the things. I didn't really compliment him. He needed a lot of compliments, a lot of approval.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't like that, and he started disliking me. And eventually, he broke up with me. And I was a virgin. I was, I think, like 22 years old. And he came to my house, my mom's house. It was an apartment, and he called, and I said, hey, we're not together anymore. So he's like, oh, but I have some of my stuff. I have like a DVD in your mom's apartment. And I told him, well, you can't come here because there's no one here. So he said, well, okay, I'm going to stay here until you open. I just want the DVD. I'm not going in. I'm not doing anything. So I told him, I grabbed the DVD. I opened the door and I slid it, and he just pushed the door, and he went in. And he said, oh, you can't tell me, like he didn't like being told what to do. And he said something, and then he just pushed me and he raped me. So that was like my first sexual experience I had, and it was from the son of a pastor, and he just raped me.
Yeah,
and then at the end he left, and he said, also, I was cheating on you with some other girl from church that was my ex.
So
And
And I
this
thought,
I am so sorry.
and this was the guy
I
that your
thought,
dad
well,
approved
okay.
of, right?
Yeah, they approved because he is the son of a pastor. And
Right.
I didn't tell anyone because there is this shame in church that everything has to be, it's like an unwritten rule. Like everything has to look perfect and everything is hiding. Like people have huge closets of skeletons and things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just normal. Like everybody knows, but nobody really talks about it. But it's like we know. And so I tried to solve it, and I said, well, I'm going to go and talk to his dad, that's the pastor of the church. And I went there, I drove there, and I said, hey, I'm here because, this happened. And they told me, oh, yeah, we know, he told us. And I was surprised. I'm like, okay, so, what do you guys think? Like, what are we going to do? Because that is, that shouldn't happen. That's wrong. And he said, oh, well, we actually did something about it. We sent him to the United States because I come from a little island. I'm not from the United States. I came here. But then, so they said, yeah, we sent them there because we didn't want you to press charges. We didn't want any type of scandal in the church.
Right.
Which look bad. So we send them out. So you can't do anything to him. And I was like, but what? So he's not. So anyways, I got really angry about that. And, eventually I just, they just offered me counseling in church. And what the church offered was like for me to pray, for me to read the Bible. And I just had this, I eventually got out of church because I thought the whole system was broken. I never liked it.
It is.
When I was a child, I thought that, I honestly, when I was like 5 years old, I remember the first time I heard about heaven and hell, I thought both were hell to me because I didn't like streets of gold. And, I didn't like any of those things. And it's funny because the Bible is so against people being rich, but then heaven has streets of gold, and gold is seen as wealth in the history. So it doesn't make any sense.
No, it does. A lot of it doesn't make sense. Well, Sue, were you able afterwards to get the therapy that you needed and deal with the trauma of that?
No, I mean, not really. People, I think I also have how I was raised, like in church. People don't really want to hear you sobbing. They just want to hear the good news. So I struggle with sort of like, I call this show, but like to do therapy, I always feel like the other person, the other side is probably thinking like, oh my God, how long is this going to take? Like, oh, this is so,
no.
like, so.
Speak to that, Amy.
I've done a bit better, but now I'm a lot better. That was when I was 22. Now I'm almost 40. And what has done huge change is that I've completely gotten religion out of my system, and not because of disdain, but because it was just, I always felt that it was like water and oil. Like I just didn't mix with it. It didn't make any sense. I didn't see it being fruitful. And if it made any sense and if it was good, then humanity as it is through history should have been a lot better with religion, since religion is throughout the whole world. And that hasn't happened. And then just more things about, science and physics, and then philosophy, that the more I learn, the more just you have to force yourself to believe, because there's just overwhelmingly more reasons that doesn't exist and that it cannot exist. The possibility of that type of God existing is pretty much impossible. From even a logical point of view, when you're thinking logically, philosophically in certain aspects, it is just not possible.
Yeah.
So I'm a lot better now.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Like the other lady, mentioned, I also agree with her. Before I used to really hate people, and outside of religion has done the opposite, has made me have compassion for people and understanding.
That's good.
So
Part of what religion does is causes us to other people. It's them and us, and it's so toxic. But I just want to say one thing. First of all, I'm so sorry, Sue, that happened to you. It was wrong. It was not your fault, and I hope that you know that 0% your fault. I'm so sorry about all of it. I really am.
Yeah.
And I hope that
it's okay.
Well, it's not okay. But
Yeah. No,
Well,
I
we're
mean,
glad you're doing better.
it's already passed. It's already passed. Yeah.
Yeah, we're glad you're doing
Yeah, it's
better.
already passed, and
Yeah,
yeah, I just wanted to sort of like share my story, and
sure. Well,
you
we
know, I'm
appreciate it.
happy for channels like this. I
Good.
hope that in the future there's more abundant and you know, more channels like this and atheists and things like that to help
Well,
people out.
that's why we do this, because there are so many experiences like yours out there, so many stories that are similar, tragically, and we want to call attention to that and speak to what the answers are. So we want to thank you for calling in. We do need to run because we're about to run out of time, but I'm glad you stopped in. I'm glad you called. Go ahead and subscribe and like, and that way you'll know when we have a show every night, every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. But thank you for calling, Sue. I'm glad you're better.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your story, Sue.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Sure. Good night. Bye.
Bye-bye. Stories are all too common. I mean,
churches
Amy,
don't have to subscribe to the laws of man, right?
no,
Deal
they
with
can
things. They deal with things in house.
internally, yeah, and
Right.
keep the facade, keep the image up. So, Amy, what are I do want to respect your time and wrap this up, but so I'm so proud of you, if I can say that without sounding misogynistic or anything.
I'll take it.
You fought your way to freedom, and you came from such a horrible beginnings, and it could have gone off the rails in so many ways, and it just didn't. And it wasn't because God had your back. You know that now. You thought he did for a while, but he didn't. And the reality is you were in charge of your own destiny, and you figured it out. Now, what I love is what you're doing with that. So tell us what Amy's up to now.
So part of the isolation and the abuse was I was never allowed to get an education. So I did graduate high school, but I'd always wanted to go to college. Back in the day, wanted to be a lawyer. That didn't happen. But so now what I've done is a month ago, I graduated with my undergrad, majored in psychology with 2 minors in mental health services and religious studies. And now I'm working on my master's, and I'm going the LCSW route versus the master's in psychology. And I wanted to just say, and I mentioned this to you, it's important to me to say why I chose this route, because it looks at the whole picture, not just the individual. It's a biopsychosocial picture. We don't live in vacuums. So what happens to us is important. The communities we live in, the relationships, whether it's religion or school or whatever, all of it impacts us, and we impact all of it. And so I'm going this route and going to hopefully specialize in religious trauma. And in particular, want to work with the LGBTQ plus community, and just marginalized people in general. So
I love that.
Yeah, I do too. And so your goal is to, like, you want to have a practice where you individually do therapy for folks who suffered religious trauma?
Yeah, that's the ultimate.
Primarily.
Yeah. But I love working with people. So, you know, the first few years I hope to work, you know, in a facility. This actual first practicum, so we have a practicum, a field placement, and I'm working at a place called Mending Hearts in Nashville. And it's an inpatient program for women that are homeless and have substance abuse issues. So this will be my first round of practice under supervision. So I'm really, really excited about that.
I can tell you are, and I'm really happy for you, and you're going to crush it. You're going to crush it. And I so love that you are taking this abuse and trauma that you experienced and turning it on its head and saying, okay, I'm going to not only survive this, but I'm going to turn it around and go and help people who are living in it and have come out of it. And I applaud you for that. And it's going to be an increasing need I mean, this problem's not going away anytime soon.
No. You know, I want everybody to carpe the fucking diem, right?
That's right.
That's why I want to do this.
Well, and that's it. And your story, sadly, is not unique. Sue's story is not unique. It's happening everywhere. And for everyone that we hear about, how many do you think there are that we did never hear about?
Oh. It's impossible to know. It really
It's
is.
impossible to know, but it's horrifying to think about.
Yes.
So thank you for pursuing that route. I applaud you and David. I'm proud to call you friends. I'm happy to know you. I don't get to see you enough,
I know.
but we'll hopefully see you. And one of these days we're gonna have to when we're in the same place, I'll introduce you to Seth, and you can tell him that he's the one that took you guys off the rails.
I would love to tell him that. And thank him.
Yeah. He's done a lot of that for a lot of people, and I'm happy to know him too. He's another guy who's what you see is what you get. He's the real deal.
You can kind of tell that.
He's just a solid guy. I've been with him behind the scenes. He's not any different out to dinner than he is on the stage. He's just who he is. He's just solid gold. Love Seth. So I love hearing stories like yours, and he does too, by the way. I mean, I've been with him when people have told him that very thing, and he just says, well, I really appreciate that. It means a lot because that's why I do what I do. And it's the truth. So really glad to know that he helped you out.
He's a hero just like you and Genevieve are.
Well, we're so happy to have had you on the show tonight. I mean, you saw these 2 calls tonight, Amy. This is what makes me and Genevieve light up, because when we hear from these folks, and I see you in the chat, Dana, and I do hope you reach out so we connect you with that group in the Cincinnati area, because there's some good folks there that you need to get to know. But man, when we hear about them and we get messages, it's so heartwarming and it's so fulfilling. So
you introduced me to my best friends in the whole world, right?
Yeah.
My group of girls.
Yeah, there's some awesome people there. I'm glad you're a part of that.
Yeah.
Well, say hi to David, and we will see you one of these days in Nashville, I'm hoping. And thanks for coming on the show tonight and telling your story. Thanks for being you. And thanks for tuning in, everyone. That's our show for tonight.